Trade lines are the fastest way to boost your credit score. This is part 5 of the Trade Lines Masterclass, and we are going to be wrapping up. This is the final episode inside of this series where I'm breaking down everything trade line related. Trade lines are not just authorized users. There's primary trade lines and there's authorized user trade lines. So if you are looking to rebuild your credit, get funding, you are going to need trade lines. You are probably going to need authorized user trade lines. And of course, I have those for you, but I want you to fully understand how they are leveraged because it might not be the right time for you. Or if it is the right time, here are the things that you need to be focused on. Because once we get these authorized user trade lines and once we've built up the credit profile that we want to get funding and we want to get approved. So how do we do that? Well, in this episode, I'm going to be covering a ton of credit unions and strategies behind building up relationships with banks and credit unions, doing a bunch of amazing things like secured loans, creating those primary trade lines, building your relationship up, and exactly what banks are out there that might be a good fit for what you have going on and what your goals are, because that's going to be really important. If you're a business owner that's eventually going to be wanting to get business funding, you're going to want to focus on banks that have a really strong business credit product side to them and not just banks that have personal products. Unlike PenFed, which is primarily personal credit based only, you might not want to go to PenFed. You might want to go to another credit union that has a really strong business credit product side. And you can always tell by simply doing your research, going to their website and seeing exactly what type of business credit products they offer. You're going to be wanting to find them that have, multiple business credit cards, business line of credit, maybe offer SBA funding, equipment financing, so on and so forth, autos, you name it. So funding strategy 101 is to build the relationship up with the bank 3 to 6 months before you apply for anything with them. And I know that might sound hard, but there is reasoning behind that. The funding strategy is basically based on your relationship with these banks. So what we want to do is build 5 or more banking products with the bank before you apply for funding. And we've talked about what those products look like: checking account, savings account, CD account, secured loan with credit unions and banks that offer that. Making weekly or monthly deposits, having some sort of direct deposit, building a credit profile for high limit funding, basically adding high limit comparable credit trade lines to your credit profile. So that way, when the banks do look at your credit, you are going to have comparable credit. Most importantly, building relationships with the bankers at the bank. This is highly important because if you are a business owner, you're going to want to deal with relationship managers. Take them to lunch, take them to coffee, get them outside of the bank so they can give you the real deal information. I'm going to be sharing with you some data points that I've been, shared, and that way you can kind of use this information how you will, but this is kind of get those wheels spinning up in your head. Rinse and repeat, guys. These are 15 banks that can give you $25K right now with no docs, as long as you have the credit profile built up. Banner is one of my favorite credit unions. Truist, they're not a credit union, but they're a regional bank. BB&T and SunTrust merged and created Truist, and they are very competitive. They've got great business credit cards, lines of credit. Lines of credit are not so easy. They used to be no doc, but now more or less the no doc items for most financial institutions are going to be credit cards. Credit cards are generally going to be off of stated information on credit applications. There are still a few banks out there that do lines of credit without tax returns, without financial records, but they are very far and few between. I am aware of Bank of Nevada that does a business line of credit with no docs, so you can definitely check them out. But these are some other credit unions: NASA, M&T, not all credit unions, but some, Umpqua Bank, USAA, great USAA. I love USAA. Great for personal loans, credit cards, not so much on the business side, but personal, yes. KeyBank, Chase. Chase is really giving out a lot with credit cards right now, so get it while it is still going, because we all know how that goes. If it goes too long, too many people become aware, and then it's done. You know, just like the GM financial card, it's done. I don't think Chase will ever be done. They're number one. They've got a ton of credit cards, but they probably will start tightening up and start slashing limits and all that good stuff. First Tech and DCU are merging, so beware of that. I don't know who's going to take the lead on that, because First Tech is Experian, DCU is Equifax. So we'll see what the future holds there. FNBO and then PenFed. PenFed is another one of my personal favorites, just because they do give out high limits. They're very similar to Navy Fed. So if you've already messed up with Navy Fed, or you just simply can't get in to Navy Fed for some reason, which I don't know why. If you follow me, I give you a free guide. I literally have a client that just got my guide and became a member. So there's no excuse unless you've already burned that bridge. And if you have burned the bridge, you have to pay it back in full with Navy Fed. There is no forgiving with them. But yeah, screenshot this. Make sure you like, subscribe, most importantly, watch all the videos inside of the TradeLines Masterclass series, because I am sharing some major game with you guys, all right? And if this is the type of information you enjoy learning about, make sure that you've joined the credit community, because this is where we talk about personal credit, business credit, starting a credit repair business, trade lines for personal and business credit, and funding, and so much more. Now, many of you may or may not know that there are what's called internal bank ratings and data that the banks hold within their own systems. So for example, Chase. Now, I had someone that said they had a client that had bad blood with Chase, and since that account was not on their credit report, they thought it was okay to go and apply for Chase. No, my friends. The banks have internal data. So if you've messed up with them in the past, just know they have you on record. Everything is attached to your social security number. It doesn't matter how long ago it was. So of course they were denied. I also helped another client get an American Express card, and they kept getting denied, and they had like an 800 credit score, and I was so puzzled as to why. And then I started looking into the history, and I'm like, man, this person just keeps getting denied for American Express. What is going on? And then come to find out they had a lawsuit with American Express due to fraud and all this other stuff. So of course that's going to get them denied, and they didn't care to share that with me until after the fact. All right. So banks have internal data, internal scoring systems, and it is best rule of thumb, if you can, when you are establishing new banking relationships, to open up that bank account, especially business bank accounts, with an initial deposit of $10,000 or more. All right, that's the magic number. You want to kickstart your bank rating with these banks. And this is not just a number that I'm pulling out of my hat. This is a number that I keep hearing after speaking with relationship managers from various well-known banks. One of my good friends over at bank told me personally, this is what we would need in order to fully invest in them. All right. And I've got relationship managers with various banks, and that's part of the program, as well as once you become funding ready inside of my VIP credit program, I can connect you with my relationship managers and people that work at the bank, so that way they can walk you through the process of getting funding. Some people at the banks might be a joy to work with. Others might have a, success fee that they charge. Me personally, I don't charge my clients a funding fee. I charge for the coaching, the information, and helping you become funding ready, so that way you can have long-term success. You want to get this first round, we'll kind of walk through it together, and in the future, you can get the funding yourself by simply rinse and repeating the process. This is the bank rating scale. Make sure you take a screenshot of this because this is going to show you in order for you to get a low 5 bank rating, you need to have the balance of $10,000 to $39,000. And that is going to get you into a much better tier to get approved for funding, especially for relationship banks like PNC and credit unions who really focus on banking relationship data to get people approved. How to build a relationship with a bank? The best rule of thumb is to get 5 or more banking products. This is the same thing that you're going to do with all of the banks. Focus on 1 to 3 banks at a time, preferably 2 banks, right? Don't open more than 3 banks at a time because you're going to get checks on your bank system reports, which is either going to be check systems or early warning. And if you are opening too many banks at the same time, you can get red flagged. You don't want that to happen. So do everything in moderation, guys, but you want to focus on 5 or more banking products: checking account, savings account, high yield savings account, CD account, certificate of deposit. Banks love these. In fact, I've had multiple clients that I've worked with that have done multiple CD accounts with different credit unions and financial institutions, and that just helped them maximize the funding that we ended up getting for them, because they focused on building the relationship with the bank. And it wasn't anything crazy. It was a few $1,000s for each CD account. But the thing you have to realize about CDs, they don't help you build credit, right? So it's very different. They are great because it's kind of like a nest egg. You don't have access to it for the term that you've elected. So if you do a 12-month CD, unfortunately, you're not going to have access to that money, but you are going to be earning a high interest on that fund. And it's going to be just a great investment for you long term, especially if you're wanting to get funding, because you have to invest in the bank if you want the bank to invest in you. We're talking about real relationships that have a long-standing financial future. Yes. All right. Secured loans. Love doing secured loans. They do report to your credit to help you build credit, primary, installment, trade line, and I've talked about them in part 1, and they are amazing. I love them. That's absolutely one of the strategies that I use to help my clients get funding as well. The higher the secured loan, the better, obviously, but do what you can. If you only have $500 right now, do that. The minimum is usually around $250, but do what you can, because slow motion is better than no motion, okay? You have to stay in your own lane and go at your own pace with whatever is comfortable for you. And for some of my clients, they are in the slow lane. For some of my clients, they're in the middle lane. And some of my clients are fast tracking it and they are speeding in carpool lane and they don't even have a carpool. Okay, so it just go at your own pace. You are not in competition with anyone. As long as you are focused on your goals and making progress every day, that's all that matters, my friend. All right, sometimes you have to learn before you earn, and sometimes it's better to go at a slower pace so you can fully understand and make the best decisions possible for you. Overdraft protection, you definitely want to make sure that you are enrolled in overdraft protection. You don't have to have a direct deposit, but it is best rule of thumb. You never have to do any of these things, but they are best rule of thumb, okay? Merchant accounts, a lot of banks are going to want you to do merchant business with them. That's fine. If you decide to do so, great. If not, perfect. Some banks you don't even have to have a relationship with to get their credit products. Credit unions, always going to be best rule of thumb. Credit unions, you're always going to need to be a member to apply for their credit products. National banks like US Bank, PNC, I won't say PNC because they're turning more relationship, but US Bank, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, you do not need to have a relationship with them to apply for their credit products. Citizens Bank, Truist, it goes on. Now, if you did, obviously better. but some banks you just simply don't need to have it, like Chase. They are already wanting to give out money because they have so many credit products that they offer, and they're the #1 bank. So, you just have to understand where you're at with each of these banks and what banks specialize in what, because you don't want to be working with a bank that doesn't specialize in the industry that you're in, because they're not going to fund you, point blank. Secured loans, what are they? They are my favorite type of primary trade line. If you recently got a lump sum of money, or you're being creative and creating your own primary trade lines, you can do this with funds from a credit card. You can do this with funds from a personal loan. You can do these from funds from wherever. Those funds just have to be in your savings account as collateral, and the bank will take out a loan and put that money into your checking account, and then you pay back the loan, right? We've kind of already discussed that process. Why I love it is it's a primary trade line with a bank, so you're building that relationship with the bank, and guess what? That secured loan is going to report on all 3 credit bureaus. Not going to cost you a hard pull whatsoever. I'm going to share with you how I've done this with many clients, and one of my credit community members recently shared, hey, I had a client, they did a $20,000 pledge loan, got approved for an $80,000 auto loan. So if you've never had installment history in the past to get you approved for an auto loan, great hack to get approved for an auto loan, and you can get the auto loan directly with the credit union. Get that $80,000 check, take it right to the dealership, and you don't have to put any money out of pocket. It's a hack to get a car without putting a down payment. I did it myself. I didn't do an $80,000, but it was a $30,000 car that I bought from CarMax. Nothing out of pocket. As long as everything out the door, taxes, fees, license, all that good stuff, gap insurance, always get gap insurance, is under $30,000 or will be covered by whatever amount that you were funded from for the bank, and you verified with the dealership that they accept that funding from that bank, then voila, there you go. I walked out with nothing out of pocket. That was like the best feeling ever, because dealerships are always hassling for you for a down payment, right? Why would you get denied for a pledge loan, right? Because people can get denied for a pledge loan, even though you're using your own money, if you are showing risky behavior inside of your bank account. Constantly overdrafting, constantly overspending, negative balances, your personal information isn't matching up, you've got all sorts of red flags flying, you will get denied. So it's really important to understand that during this relationship building phase, we cannot have any overdrafts, we cannot have any negative balances. Those are signs of risk. They are red flags. So if you are trying to get denied for funding, then go ahead and get you an overdraft and get a negative balance, because that's like an automatic denial right there for you. So if you have recently had an overdraft, don't even try. All right, let at least 6 to 12 months pass with no overdrafts, no negative balances. Your account cannot go in the negative, guys. It's extremely important. It can go down to $1, it can go down to $10, but it cannot go negative. All right, you have to understand that from the bank standpoint, that looks like a risk. All right, and they're not messing with people that are risky. We have to show up for success each and every day if we want that in return. If we want funding, we cannot take that risk. It's simply not worth it. You have to be more responsible and get a budget in place if this is, happening to you. If you can't get into Navy Federal to do a pledge loan, aka savings secured loan, here is a list of other financial institutions that will offer it. Most credit unions offer something like this. They may have a different name for it. Some people called it a credit building loan. Whatever the case is, it's all the same. They use collateral from your savings to create the loan, and then you let it report, pay it down 85%, rinse and repeat, right? But these are some other credit unions. Take a screenshot of this and, you know, do your thing, make it happen, take action. That's the most important thing. And like, subscribe, and share the video, comment below, guys. Let's talk a little bit more about credit unions. They are my favorite type of bank. Some credit unions might perform a hard credit pull when you join, but you know, you can always get those off. If you know how to call into the credit bureaus and you know how to fix credit, you can easily get those off. But why I love credit unions so much versus these national banks that we all know, and you know, most of us don't know of any of these credit unions, because when we drive down the street, when we're watching TV, when we're watching commercials growing up, these are all of the national banks that we would see. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, you know, and so on and so forth. All these major banks. A lot of us have never even heard of some of these credit unions, right? But these are the hidden gems. They offer secured loans to build credit, something that a lot of these other national banks just simply don't offer and would never tell you, right? They are very old school, so their underwriting department's usually pretty small. They can kind of pull some strings here and there. You know, they are more flexible, and they're also owned by their members. They're nonprofit and for their members. You do have to be a member with credit unions in order to apply for their credit products. You do have to be a personal member in order to have a business membership or a business account with them. They're very relationship based. So if you invest in them, they're going to invest in you 10x, okay? They also will fund people with bad or low credit scores. If you build the relationship up right, and I showed you guys how to do that, the CDs are important, the secured loans are important, overdraft protection, 5 or more banking products, guys. But those 2 CD accounts, I'm telling you, that 50K approval that I showed you guys, CD accounts. All right, prepaid cards that you can load with their credit card, just like Navy Federal, San Diego, Langley, they have prepaid debit cards that you can load with their credit card. They allow you to double dip, meaning they will allow you to apply for multiple credit products at the same time. Or when they do pull your credit, they can use that credit pull to get you approved for multiple credit products. Auto loans, no down payment. Whatever you get approved for from them, you can take that check right on into the dealership and you can walk out with a brand new car, no hassle. The only thing is, like I said before, make sure that they accept funding, that dealership accepts funding from that bank, because not all dealerships will accept outside funding from all banks. So you just have to verify. And a lot of times, like for example, Navy Federal, they'll give you a list of all of the dealerships that they are authorized with. Same with like Bank of America. So just call, speak to the finance manager, verify, and then you can go and handle your business. Here are some great credit unions that I really like. First Tech is good, but again, they're merging with DCU. Andrews, We Credit Union, Unify, American Heritage, Chevron, NIH, PenFed, Apple, Dover, Alliant, American Airlines, Quorum, Navy Fed, RBF, Bethpage, Connexus, more PenFed. I've put together a list of over 100 credit unions. You can access them right here. You just click on it and it will have you open up your copy of this TradeLines list, and it gives an overview on a lot of great information, how to join, who they pull credit from, all of that good stuff. And like I said, guys, all of this information is inside of the credit community. So if you want the download, join the credit community and you get discounts on TradeLines. So it's a win-win, and you're going to learn how to fix your credit. If you want the done for you funding ready program, join the annual credit community program and you can make it happen, guys. Or book a call with me and we can discuss what the best options for you would be. Now, CDFI banks, these are community development financial institutions. They are meant for businesses that are within the community that can provide development, jobs, and, basically help the community grow. And these are banks that you can look up and say, who are the CDFI banks in my area? Bank of America is one of many, but look for those small community banks or community credit unions that are CDFI banks, because they are the ones that you want to start building the relationships with, especially if you're a business owner. No document funding. What does this mean? I hear it all the time. What does it mean, Nicole? It means you don't need any documents. What you put on the credit application, the bank is going to use as stated income. A lot of times they don't verify it. So it's no documents, no financial records, no tax returns, simply goes off of stated income. My type of application. Use with caution and do not run off on the plug, guys. Okay, don't mess this up for everybody. Bank branch locator. If you have clients that are in different states, or you want to find out what the best banks are for each territory, this is a great tool to use. It'll tell you what the best banks are for each territory. iBankNet, this is going to give you the top financial institutions. This is just a simple screenshot of all of the top credit unions right here. And you have the top, national banks, like of course Chase is number 1, and you see the top 10 here. Many of us have heard of these banks, but iBankNet is a great tool to kind of get you familiarized with some of these top financial institutions. Financial Fitness Association, amazing organization to help you get into some of these credit unions and start building relationships. These are some of the credit unions that are a part of their organization, and you can join Financial Fitness for $8 a year. It's well worth it, and that way you can get into these credit unions from your association with them. Another way that you can get into some credit unions that, some really good credit unions, including PenFed, is the American Consumer Council, guys. And you can actually join the American Consumer Council online by using the promo code CONSUMER and join for free. Now, if you did want to give them $5 or a donation, I would highly appreciate and recommend it, because they are an amazing organization and a lot of people do get in for free. But with all that they do, they are a nonprofit and they focus on financial literacy and consumer education, which a lot of places don't. So I would say, please pay the $5, and if you absolutely want to get in for free, go ahead, use the promo code. But if you can, pay the fee to get in, because they do a lot of great things, and I would be very sad if they ever went away because nobody wants to pay, right? And it's only $5, guys. It's only $5. But here are some of their credit unions that you can access by just being a member with them. These are some of the ones that do have geographic fenced locations, meaning you have to be near a branch in order to qualify for membership. Same thing with like US Bank and Truist, right? If you're not X amount of miles from a branch, then you're not going to qualify for an account. Those are geo-fenced banks, right? Non-geo-fenced banks don't care where you live, right? So here's more geo-fenced, but if you are in these areas, go after the banks that focus on service members, right? Right here, Police and Fire Federal Credit Union. This one is fire. Okay, any credit union that focuses on service members, firefighters, police, like Navy Federal, those police credit union, here's another one right here. They are amazing. All right, definitely want to get in with them. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a service member. That's the great thing about it, right? Credit union search, you can go to creditunions.org and search for credit unions that are in your area to start doing some research and see if these credit unions are going to be a bit, a good fit for you. And, go into the branch, ask questions, call them, ask questions. Don't be afraid to find out what they can truly offer you, because sometimes you do need to interview a bank to see if they're going to be the right bank for you. Ask them, hey, what's the highest credit card approval you guys have? What's the highest line of credit that you offer? What type of documents are required for the business credit applications? What kind of documents are required for a business line of credit? Don't be afraid to ask these questions. These are important questions. And if you find a bank that gives higher limits, requires less documents versus this this bank over here, then we've already saved a lot of time. But do your due diligence and interview the bank just like they would interview you, because there's no point in building a relationship with someone when you're not interested in what they have to offer. Funding challenges that many people face: higher interest rates, credit line closures, credit line reductions, low approval rates, artificial intelligence and algorithms basically telling you no, stricter underwriting requirements, proof of income, and tax returns. People always freak out about tax returns. Guys, it's not that big of a deal, all right? Even if your tax returns don't look super amazing, they really just want to make sure that you're a legitimate business that files taxes. So don't be afraid of it. Many people are so afraid of SBA funding because of all the documents, but really, I don't know. Sometimes you just don't know. But credit applications, here's where it gets good, guys. This is the good part right here. Credit applications. This is so important, and a lot of people simply don't talk about it. Income matters, all right? Like I talked about before, think as if you were the bank, right? If someone comes to you as the bank, you're the bank, right? They come to you and say, hey, bank, I want $50,000. Okay, great. How much money do you make? $60K, $70K, no more than $100K. Okay, so you don't even make barely what you're asking for, and you want $50K. Yeah, hell no, right? Hell no. Think of it from the bank standpoint. If they're going off a stated income, you need to look good on paper. You need to understand how to look approval ready, funding ready on paper. Credit report, credit application, all right? Make what's called a application card. Basically, all of the questions that are on the funding applications. Make a card or a Google sheet that has all of the questions and then your answers. Household income, projected income, all of these numbers, make sure it's on your funding card, because these are the answers that you're going to put time and time again. And on your funding card, you can have your EIN number, your business address. Make sure you get a real business address when you're going after funding, because a lot of these virtual addresses no longer work, guys, okay? Book a call with me to find out more, but it's just mind-blowing how fast things change, right? But one of my relationship managers told me, use your household income, put a minimum of $170,000 to $230,000, and on the business estimates, a minimum of $180,000 or more. They don't check. Funding plays. This is the information. This is where it gets good, guys. And this is why I tell you, you always want to make sure you watch all of these videos. I know they're long, but they are full of value. And I know the people that watch all my videos, they are the ones that are always going to remember me, because they've gotten so much game from me, guys. There is no gatekeeping here. I always tell you, if you knew better, you would do better. There is no reason to pay for a funding company that's going to charge you anywhere from 10 to 15, sometimes 20% of what you get approved for. You can do this stuff yourself. You just have to invest your time and money into learning it, all right? Lightstream, they're giving out the big bag right now. If you don't know about Lightstream, they pull from TransUnion. They are a loan company. You can go and apply for a used auto loan, and they will deposit those funds right into your bank account, and you don't ever have to get an auto, all right? And they'll give you the cash fast. So I've had someone that has gotten $50,000, another person got $80,000. So this is great play. It's still hot right now, still working. So get it while the getting is good. Here are a bunch of Equifax banks. I'm always asked for Equifax banks. So take a screenshot. Banks that pull Equifax, yes indeed. Here are banks that pull from TransUnion. Now we can scratch off the GM card because it is no more. Y'all ran that play into the ground, and it is officially DIAD. DIDA. It's no more. DEAD. Navy Fed, BMO Harris, US Bank, Apple Federal Credit Union, Teachers, Elon, and the Apple Card. I have a feeling that the Apple Card is the next on the chopping block for Goldman Sachs. So just be prepared. I've had this feeling for a while. I wasn't surprised when the GM Financial Card got cut. You know, that's just what happens when too many people find out about how to get cards without an inquiry. So there's that, right? But there are so many more banks out there and, you know, opportunities. If you don't want to go with one bank, or maybe you've had bad blood with that bank, there are so many other places out there. Here are just some examples of high limit credit cards. San Diego Federal Credit Union, this is a credit union you guys need to get familiar with. They are becoming one of my favorite credit unions. They do everything just as good as Navy Federal, okay? And nobody talks about them, but you can get in with them by joining the American Consumer Council. They're super easy to join. All right, you can get up to 100,000 just like with Navy. Unify, that's up to 50K. The flagship with Navy Federal, that's up to 80K. You've got Unify Credit Union. I think I've said that one. UNFCU. Try to say that 10 times in a row. This one goes up to 100K. We've got First Tech. You know, I don't know, again, First Tech, DCU merged, not sure what to expect from there, but they're still a great bank. Both of those are great banks, so I don't think anything negative would come from that. I'm just curious as to what credit bureau they plan to pull when they officially merge, which is supposed to happen this year, so we'll see. Stated income, a lot of these credit card applications, again, go off stated income. Loans might ask for, you know, pay stubs or things of that nature. Don't worry, I got you on that too. I'm a one-stop shop. So book a call, we can make it happen. Navy Fed, 50,000, they have what's called the home improvement loan. It has to be applied for over the phone, but it goes up to 50,000. No, you don't need to own a home. You just need to get the home improvement loan. You could be doing this for your grandma. You could be buying solar for the family home that you live in. Who knows, right? PenFed, they specialize in personal loans. They actually offer their personal loans on other funding platforms, and it's a soft pull to pre-qualify. Loans from PenFed do pull from Experian, even though I know you know them as an Equifax bank, but that's a prime example of how banks can pull different credit bureaus for different credit products. All right, that's very common in banks. Just like Bank of America, a lot of times they are using TransUnion for their credit cards, but when it comes to like business auto loans or equipment, they are using Experian. You know, generally Bank of America is like an Experian bank, but for some reason, sometimes they use TransUnion for some of their credit cards. You know, hey, I don't know. That's just how it goes, right? Depends on your location, depends on the credit product. High limit loans, we've got San Diego Federal Credit Union again, Connecticut, American Heritage, Patelco, Andrews, Lafayette, Langley, Unify, First Tech. All great options, guys. Best personal lines of credit, American Heritage, Connecticut, Andrews, Unify, Patelco, and San Diego. Again, we've got Alliant, PenFed, and Connexus for the best home equity lines of credit. Good regional banks that I really like, and I actually wish I had some of these that were near me, like Truist. One of my favorite, always has a great welcome offer, and that's another great way that you can make additional income is by just opening up bank accounts that have a great welcome offer like Truist. They're always giving $400 just to open an account. Many have to be done online to get the bonus, and you have to ensure that you meet the qualifying factors, but great way to make additional income and, you know, just get those rewards by opening up a bank account, opening up a credit card. Huntington, KeyBank, Truist, Citizens, Regions, PNC, and Fifth Third, some of my favorites. We talked about this a little bit, and I've talked about this before on other videos, the prepaid hack. Basically, a lot of these credit unions, well, not a lot, but these right here, Andrews, Navy, and again, San Diego, will allow you to get what's called a prepaid debit card and load it with a credit card. So you can fund the prepaid debit card with a credit card, and it's not going to cost you a cash advance fee. Hello. Okay, take advantage. Usually it's a completely different application and process to get that, but you can certainly look into that if that would help you. A lot of funding mistakes that I see from people out there. Okay, first of all, is having balances on all of their credit cards. Like, I looked at one gentleman's credit report recently, and he had balances on every single credit card. Some were like $12, $8, and he just thought that he had to keep a small balance on his credit cards. And in fact, no, it is best to have all but one credit card paid to zero before you apply for any additional credit. Because if you have a small balance, I don't care if it's $8 or $80, the bank looks at that like a risk. Okay, so not knowing the correct data points of that particular lender, because each bank is a little bit different, applying for too many new accounts too quickly, not having a good bank relationship, no or low credit usage, no credit accounts, weak credit profile, right? That's really important to understand how to build it so you can get the funding, right? If you're not building it, they're not going to fund you. Low credit score, negatives, collections, late payments, charge-offs, these type of things take time to perfect sometimes, right? So you can join the Funding Ready program, and it will cover you for up to 12 months as needed to help you prepare to get funding ready, clean up the credit, work with you on establishing credit so we can build that foundation concrete. All right, here is your funding checklist. You want to make sure that you've built those relationships up with the banks before you need them. Let them age for at least 3 to 6 months or more. Know your data points. All right, consider your debt to income ratio, credit utilization, number of credit inquiries, new accounts. You want to have at least a 720 credit score or higher, right? Diversify your bank relationships. Bank with multiple banks and credit unions. All right, decorate your credit profile for success. All right, you want to have those mixed accounts, aged accounts, high limit accounts, primary accounts, and most importantly, the all but one. Right? We want to pay all but one to zero, so that way you don't look like a risk. All right, possibly two. I've seen people with more, but if you want to optimize, you're going to have all those accounts, credit card accounts, to a zero balance, even if we have to refinance the debt to a personal loan. All right, because I'm telling you from experience, we've got to do it. Perks of hard pulls with credit unions, like, if they have to pull your credit to get in, sometimes it's worth it, right? Navy Fed does not pull your credit to apply as a member, but banks like Alliant and First Tech, they both pulled my credit when I applied for a bank account with them. But you can get it off, so it's really no big deal. Here are some top credit unions right here. If you are a business owner, I would look at some of these credit unions to consider building credit with. Navy Federal is okay on the business side. They only have one credit card though, but they are great on the personal side, so you can add that comparable credit that's high limit on the personal side to kind of kick things off, get it kick-started, and then other banks will follow, just like I showed you. And I believe it was like part 2 where I showed you one of my VIP clients' success stories and the strategy that we used behind it. But screenshot that, because these are all great credit unions that can really kickstart some amazing things. Here is another client that I worked with, and this is a $30,000 approval from Navy Federal. And this is what he said. This is what happens when I soak up all your videos, listen to what you told me, and I called you and decided to have you help me with my credit. Thank you again for the guidance. Okay, Navy Federal is a game changer. You've got to get in with them, guys. I've got a free guide. Get it. It's inside of my link tree. I'll leave that link below. But they are going to pull from either TransUnion or Equifax on the personal side, and on the business side, they generally use Experian. So make sure to watch my Navy Federal masterclasses. I've got an entire playlist of Navy Federal videos, right? But these are some credit unions that you can look into. Again, this slideshow is going to be available inside of the credit community, but if you can screenshot all of this stuff, you certainly can. But keep keep this in mind. There are many things to consider when you are, doing credit applications, because banks are all, they're different. Some banks have rules, like for example, Chase, they have the 524 rule, meaning if you've opened up more than 5 revolving accounts in the last 24 months, they might deny you, right? Because that's too many new accounts that you have opened. So if you are planning a funding sequence and you're close to that range, Chase needs to be the first account that you open to ensure that you get that approval, and work with a relationship manager so that way you can get multiple cards. Maybe you can start with 2 business credit cards and work with the right relationship manager. Find relationship managers on LinkedIn. That's game right there. Like, subscribe, share, guys. I'm trying to tell you. And this is just, a lot of the information that we've already covered is just making sure that you have comparable credit. You really have done your research, and feel free to book a call with me so we can review your plan just to make sure that you've got an A1, because you've got to get a plan together, and then most importantly, you have to execute. Here are a lot of credit notes just to kind of get you guys kick-started. Not something that I would recommend as far as Synchrony goes, because I always tell my clients, stay away from store credit cards. Commentary Bank, stay away from them. Synchrony Bank, stay away from store credit cards. All right, we don't want any store credit cards because they are low limits, and soon as you use the card, they are pretty much like maxed out. Your utilization is sky high. All right, so if you are wanting to get your FICO credit score and you're like, I don't know what my score is, every time I look at it, it's different. Well, Credit Karma is not going to give you the FICO. Credit Karma is a Vantage 3.0. Vantage also has 4.0. The only people that really use Vantage to approve you are like property management companies, because it's a cheaper way to get your credit report and scores versus a FICO. Banks and financial institutions are going to use some form of a FICO variation. Right now, these are all of the FICO variations that are out currently. FICO 10 is a new FICO version, and it is going to be more based on history. Right now, most of these FICO versions are kind of, really zooming in on the last 24 months of history. The FICO 10 is going to look at a longer history. They're going to look at the last 48 months. So it's really important for you to understand that your credit traits and relearning everything, ensuring that you pay everything on time, is going to be at an all-time high, guys, an all-time high. But you can get this information from the MyFICO app. Highly recommend it, so that way you can get an idea of where you are at with all of the different FICO variations, autos, credit cards, etc. Credit pulls can vary based on the credit product and what state you live in. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much. If you have stuck around this long, I appreciate you so much. Do me a favor, share this information, like, comment, and most importantly, watch all of the videos inside of this TRADELINES Masterclass series. I would greatly appreciate it if you could book a call with me so we can discuss your goals and make it happen for you. I will see you next time. Take care.